So first, let me say that I enjoyed very much. It was really impressive to listen to the talk to Non-Kuloleko, very mind-shaking. And I think that this session about sound urban planning comes right on time. This is, of course, well thought by the organizing committee. Hope everybody had a good lunch, break, nap, or whatever. So let me start by something a little bit different from the perspective so far, by talking about this. Well, I think that everybody would agree if I say that one of the most important concepts on which almost everybody agrees right now all over the globe is the fact that biodiversity is wealth. It's something which is not against development of mankind. It's something that is part of it. And yet, in spite of this recognition by everybody, we keep doing this. We grow huge areas with one single crop, which is exactly the opposite of preserving biodiversity. As far as construction is concerned, the world is a fantastic showroom of different construction materials, different architecture, different constructive cultures, and especially in Africa. Okay, as several speakers already gave a few examples of the wonderful buildings and villages and whatever that you can find in this continent. And yet, at least in Europe and North America and in China, what we try to reproduce is this. Again and again, the same type of model with only a few materials, in which cement-based materials are definitely dominating. Only a few model of buildings. And again, this is the opposite of diversity. And it led to what we already saw. For instance, during the crisis in 2008, we had the first hunger riots because the food was not enough available due to too much crops going to biofuels. We are now living the pandemics due to the fact that the wild area where animal life can go are narrowing so much that they come to the places where we live. And in parallel with that, which is the wrong way to go, mankind has gone for quite a few centuries or even more, forever, I would say, in a totally different way of doing things, which is the vernacular way of doing things, which can be summarized as follows. I think it's fair to say that vernacular is to use with measure what is locally available and recyclable and invent locally optimized solution. Optimized with respect to what? With respect to resources, but also for the quality of life in community and putting everybody in the same community. Yet, right now, we have to take care to provide food for everybody, healthcare, energy, infrastructure and housing, and we have to build community. And as several speakers already emphasized, we are now for Africa at a unique time. There is a unique opportunity to start in the right way. The exponential development which is going on now. The problem is that this is not going to happen spontaneously. And not later than last week, there was a serious warning by the International Energy Agency and Thomson Reuters Foundation in Johannesburg, in which they warned that according to, I think, 2,500 different sites that they looked at, they came to the conclusion that if things are going like they are going now, in 10 to 20 years, Africa can still be the most fossil fuel extensive continent on the globe, because less than 10% of Africa of electricity will come from renewable. Most of it will come from fossil fuels. So this is something to take really serious, in the sense that behind this fantastic opportunity, if there is no investment in education, well, things will not happen. We have to do something. As far as urbanization is concerned, of course, we have to build dwellings, buildings, commercial buildings, individual houses, and of course also infrastructure. I think people not very often realize how much infrastructure is involved in the development of a country or a continent. Here are a few numbers which are related to the infrastructures of the United States, which are aging infrastructure. They are not in good shape, generally speaking. But look at the numbers, they are really amazing. More than 3,000 airports, 6 million kilometers of public roadways, more than 1 million kilometers or sewer mains for wastewater treatment, more than 1 million kilometers of fresh water pipes, commercial dams, whatever. And most of this is made of concrete. And as you know, as was already emphasized, we really use a lot of concrete in the world with one type of glue so far, essentially one type, which is Portland or Portland type cement. And as was already emphasized also, the increase in cement consumption in the recent times, let's say the last decades, just follows the increase in world population, which means that there is no hope to see a real decrease of this if we go on with the same way to build things, because as population will grow essentially in Africa, the use of cement and concrete will follow the same trend. Are we going to build cities along the model that we are now following, mainly megacities? This was already emphasized also. The point is that this is not necessarily the most desirable model. As I think it was Wolfram who emphasized that vertical cities are not the best cities as far as simple mechanical concepts are concerned, and they are not the best as far as equality, because a vertical city is intrinsically an hierarchically organized city. Of course, many people claim that horizontal cities, extended cities, are not good for energy because you need transportation. Now, the point is that if we think of what transportation and energy sector could be, with decentralized energy production, solar in particular, or wind energy, and with transportation powered with those renewable energy, now the good model is not a vertical city, it's an horizontal city, which makes also things much more livable. Let's come now back to this concept of vernacular and ask ourselves, can this concept be applied not only to what we have in mind when we think about vernacular, but about the modern evolution of our society and what we expect for the future? Let me just show you a few, 2 or 3 slides showing that maybe we may be wrong when we think about vernacular. I think in most countries where vernacular is in the tradition, people believe that vernacular is basically for the poor. And this is a major problem for introducing ways of construction, for instance, like raw earth construction, which may be useful, as was already emphasized also, in many places. What you see there is a truck, and it's not pouring concrete, regular concrete. is pouring what I would call earth concrete. Let's say it's a mixture of aggregates, and the binder is not Portland cement, it's just clay. And with some admixtures, this material can be implemented exactly in the same way as we implement self-leveling concrete. Of course, the admixtures that people use now are probably not the best environmental friendly admixtures, but again, as was already presented by Wolfram, there are plenty of natural resources which could do the same job as the, let's say, chemical industry-based admixtures that we use now. As far as the building itself is made, again, I think in several places, this was made in South Korea. In several places, people have shown that using properly formulated earthen materials, we can use the same type of modern construction techniques that people use with concrete, ordinary concrete material. Again, the example you show on the screen is an example in which the earth contains a few percent cement, which is to be avoided if we want to keep it really environmentally friendly. But recent progress, for instance, at ETH Zurich in Switzerland, points to the fact that the same result could very soon be obtained with, let's say, environmental friendly admixtures. Now, what about the regular concrete itself? Well, the message I would like to present is that we should not separate vernacular materials from modern concrete, because the concept itself, aggregate plus a glue, is something which can be applied to many different things. And what we have seen so far in the morning is that there is plenty of natural resources from biosourced material, but from other materials also, volcanic ashes and whatever, which could provide all the types of aggregates and new binders that we need to produce concrete. Let me make this more clear. What you have on the screen there is a database in which a few hundred concrete formulations. The ordinate axis is the compressive strength, and the abscissa is the cement content of the concrete. And what you see, for instance, is that for the same strength, let's say 50 MPa, which is pretty good concrete, some people use 100 kilograms of cement, and some other people use 550, which is a factor of about 6. And the same, it's even larger if you go to lower strength concrete, let's say 25 or 50 MPa, which means that by properly designing concrete, with all these supplementary materials that we now have, with all the methods, the formulation methods that we now have, we could make, let's say, pretty good concrete with probably much less cement with what we do now. Can we put that on a usable and a predictive basis? Well, this is where something that we didn't hear anything about so far today, let's say machine learning and modern information technologies comes in. More and more people show that machine learning algorithms are able to predict rather accurately at least the compressive strength and sooner or later other properties of concrete, starting from raw data about their formulation. This is an example which was pretty good in the sense that it was based on an extensive database of 10,000 concrete formulation in the field, in which the compressive strength was predicted and compared pretty well, as you see, compared to the actual test. And it looks really as if machine learning methods will soon be able to predict not only compressive strength, but a lot of different properties, use properties, starting with a real broad landscape of parameters. I'm presently reviewing a paper where the authors consider more than 40 different parameters, including whether the the workers in the factory work in shift or not to predict different properties, and they arrived at some significant result. So to come back to a word that I think it's Wolfram who coined it, I think we are on the verge of a concrete world and a construction world which will be vernacular 2.0 type, in the sense that we are headed to a world where the resources would be essentially local. The people using the resources with micro enterprises, like somebody else talked about, would develop locally on the basis of what is available and what are the local needs, with an increased involvement of the local people. Now, the point is that in parallel to this, this can only work if we switch to the present normalization methods based on composition to performance-based standards. And the next question is, who could help to head toward this state? Is it going to be construction companies, cement manufacturers? Well, probably not. The people who will be key in this type of evolution will be the people who will be able to gather all the data to predict the properties and to make them available to others. I don't know if Google or Amazon Web Service would be involved in that, but at least it's important to ask the question. But this is probably a way to reconcile urban development with material, technical, cultural, and supplementary material diversity. It involves innovation, science and engineering, and education, as many people already emphasized today also. And one key aspect of this, as was emphasized, I think, 2 weeks ago in Science magazine, which is a pretty good journal, by Edwin Barasa from Kenya. He's involved in medical research, but he emphasized correctly that Africa is really needing not only scientists, actually, all level people interested in focusing on African problem. Now the session will tackle different aspects of this. Our first speaker will be Kukua Manful, and she will talk about very important aspect of African life, which is the informal sector, which is a place where the creative power is doing excellent thing, and where there is a huge resource that should be used. The second speaker is Esther Camara, and she will kind of bet. And she said, her message, I think, is that we should bet on young people and even on kids, because again, this is a world where initiative, boldness is everywhere present. And finally, we will have a talk with two speakers, Eduardo Pereira and Thiago Miranda from Portugal, from Minho, which is a worldwide known place for conservation, rehabilitation, and so on, where they will talk about the conservation of cultural heritage and traditions, which is a key point if we want to keep this world which is coming livable. Thank you. So let me leave the floor now to, how should I move out of full screen? Let me leave the floor now to our first speaker. Kukua Manful, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
I will just start to share my screen after you're done.
Okay.
In the meantime, it's good to be here, and